I Am Big is about sharing what's working in a big way. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way in which its animals are treated." Our guest today loves animals and believes in reverence for all life. She believes that there is bigness in all animals. She has been rescuing homeless and abused dogs since 1975. Please welcome Gloria Listener to the I Am Big Show. Welcome, lovely Gloria, to the I Am Big Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure, and welcome, Topogigio, right?
This is Topogigio. He was a throwaway at a open door city shelter, and he's my dog now. I've adopted him.
Love you. Thank you.
Love you too.
Thank you
Thanks
so much.
for having us.
I see you've chosen white wine as your big drink.
I love white wine. Thank you.
Tell us about your love for white wine.
It just makes
Cheers,
me.
by the way.
Cheers to you too. It makes me calm down and feel good. There's a lot of pressure with the rescue dogs, and there's so many, and it's a very stressful job to try to save the animals. We have a lot of volunteers and people who help bring the dogs out of the shelters, and it's a very stressful thing. People don't know actually what a shelter dog is and what a rescue dog is.
I would love to, and our viewers will as well, love to. What has been your connection with animals growing up or in your life in general?
Well, I started when I was a little girl. I was the only child, and they were my best friends. I had two dogs growing up with my grandmother. I lived with my grandma and dad. And they were my inspiration of, they were there for me. They were like my brothers and sisters. I started in 1972 with my first dog grooming shop. And we worked with dogs, and there was people, it wasn't rescue back then. People were just dropping dogs off and throwing them over fences and tying them up to the door. And then we started our first dog deli and bakery in 1980, and it just kept growing. And I started working with the city shelter about 5 years ago and seeing how really what a dramatic and tragic situation we're in right now with these throwaway animals. It's kind of a throwaway society. People are abandoning their cats and dogs, and it's insane. I mean, they're just like leaving them at shelters, and hopefully they get homes, and some of them don't. They get, they're there and they're confused. They don't know what's going on. They fall through the cracks. And rescues either come to get them or they die sometimes.
What's so cute. What's his story?
Well, Topo Gij was one of he's like a very small dog that would not make it through the shelter system. An open door city shelter, animals like linger in kennels. They get kennel cough, pneumonia, and they either get rescued or they die or they get euthanized. And his story, one of the volunteers brought him all matted and all messed up to me as a rescue, and we fell in love. He's the inspiration and our spokes dog for our rescue. He's a great dog, but he's probably a senior, probably 8 to 10 years old, and there's a lot of seniors at the shelter. Like, people pass away and their relatives don't have a life plan for their animals, and their animals sit in cages. They don't know where they are. I love
that. Just what you just said for our viewers, life plan for their animals.
Now, what the situation is in shelters, people think that no-kill shelters are good, and people don't think sometimes when they bring them to kill shelters. Topo Gij is from a kill shelter. That means they euthanize animals there. So the first thing the animal wonders what happened. He's been with this person for 10 years or 12 years, and he's brought to a shelter by the relatives. So everybody should make a life plan for their dog or cat of what happens when you pass away. Where does the animal go? You definitely don't want him to go to a shelter. because he may die and you don't know what's going to happen to him. So he needs a life plan.
Can you tell us some more examples of animals you have rescued and where they came from and where they are today?
One of the stories is there was a blind pit bull named Sweetie. That's just one. There's hundreds and hundreds of them.
Let's talk about Sweetie.
Sweetie was blind. She was thrown out in the dead of winter in the snow and just out on the street.
Just on the street?
On the street. Somebody just threw her out. She was on the street. And then obviously she went to the animal care and control shelter where she was put in a city shelter. So she would be a dog that would probably not likely get a home.
Why is that?
Well, she's blind. She's a pit bull. Pit bulls are the top throwaway dog. Sweetie went to the city shelter. She had a lot of bad breaks. She was approached by a volunteer that had a cat to do a cat testing, and she bit the cat. So that's an automatic death sentence when you're in a kill shelter. If you bite or snap, you're euthanized. We stood up for her, and we got her out of the shelter. Then we found out she had cancer, terminal cancer, and they did a massive surgery on her and saved her. And she was at our rescue for almost a year, and these wonderful people in Wilmette took her in. And now she has a garden apartment, she has her own bed, she has a fireplace. They love her unconditionally. The moral of that story is if each animal had a voice speaking up for them, they could be saved. People are in mass numbers getting rid of their dogs and cats, and they should be speaking up for those animals and rehoming the animals instead of bringing them to shelters so they end up dying. Even in a no-kill shelter, that is a prison sentence because an animal has to sit in there for maybe years in a cage. And they can only give him so much time and devote so much time. Just like Topo, he has his regimen. He has to be in his cuddler. He has to have his food. He's
like any of us.
Yes, like any of us.
Do you think animals speak?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you talk to Topogigio?
Matter of fact, that's who I enjoy talking to most.
Let's have a conversation.
Well, animals do speak. They tell us things all the time by their body language. This guy is very intense. Like right now he's just chilling out and he's being part of the interview. But he speaks to me all the time. He tells me what he wants. He wants to go here. He wants to get in his cuddler. He wants to eat. I don't feel good. But people don't listen, you know.
Well, he trusts you. I mean, he does.
Trust. When the animal, this Cheech is in total trust. He trusts me with his life, and he trusts me. He knows he has a great life, and there's no surprises for him. The problems with animals that go to shelter, they don't trust. They either come from neglectful homes. That neglect means they could have been isolated, kept in a cage in a basement, not paid attention to, or they could be coming from abusive homes where people have done bad things to the animals, tortured the animals, hit the animals, kicked them. So when animals go into the shelter, they don't trust anymore. And there's an abandonment issue of the animals being left at the shelter. What happened? What did I do? Where's my family? So it takes time when they get into a foster and adoptive home that the family gives them time to get used to and their routine and build the trust. So sometimes the animal may snap, they have caretakers at the shelter who they may be not volunteers, they may be employees that really don't understand animals, and the animals become scared and they feel like they're lost, they don't trust.
Here is my question. I think there's a bigger issue than, I feel that at least that the shelters provide a place when people choose not to have the animals anymore. I think let's talk about the bigger issue, which is when you take in an animal. Our guest, John, who was here the other day, and when he had certain financial issues, he said, look, people told me give Benjamin his cat away to the shelter. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, would you give your child away? So I think the bigger issue I want to focus on is, and want to hear your perspective is, when you do decide to take in an animal, you got to be ready for it.
I feel that is the way to think, but most people don't think like that because we're in a throwaway society right now, and it really, there's a circle. It pertains to the animals that are thrown away, And it all connects with the children that are thrown away and the seniors that are thrown away. Back to the animals, I feel that when people get animals, that if they, I don't see how anyone could give their animal away. If they've had it 10 years and they now have children, it's a matter of conditioning and reinventing the wheel of how to get along with the kids, keeping them, doing what it takes. Well, people are dropping the animals off in record numbers, and what the excuse is the economy. There's a lot of help out there for people to get with the animals. It's usually, what I'm seeing with the rescue is people, it's not fitting their lifestyle and they want to get rid of it right now. And it has to be right now. Today is Friday. I need to get rid of my animal. I don't think it's a good idea to bring animals to shelters, no-kill shelters or kill shelters.
What are the other options?
Well, the other option is to stand behind the animal, get help, and rehome the animal, and keep it in its home, if it's a safe home, till somebody can network the animal and rehome the animal instead of it going to a shelter. Because when it goes to a shelter, it totally breaks down. It's scared. It doesn't want to be there. It's confused. It gets sick. We need to start bringing awareness of what rehoming is and getting it a home, Facebooking it, networking it, doing the proper interviewing, and adopting the animal out to the proper home and a qualified home. And there also has to be some new laws passed where people can't just be getting animals and throwing them away.
And I think for our viewers, we really want to break this down simply as much as possible. It's very simple to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's complex but very simple. And the simple thing to me is an animal is a living being.
Exactly.
Let us treat a living being with respect and love. If you're going to bring them in your life and take unconditional love, then give unconditional love. So I don't think that, and I don't think you are also trying to put the shelter down or put anybody down or whatever. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is, let's treat the animals with the respect that they deserve.
Right.
Let's talk about your work in that space. You're doing it for years. And I just want you to know that, I hope you know this, that 30 years or so of doing this and more, in my culture they say that souls give you blessing. They bless you. When you, living souls, they bless you, no matter what it is. Do you realize the amount of blessing you have accumulated with your work?
I'm kind of in shock from the situation, so I could just keep moving and going and moving and going and saving and trying to place.
Do you acknowledge that what you're doing is making a difference?
I'm trying to make a difference, and I've made a difference in a lot of animals' life. That's what keeps me going, that some of the animals that we've saved with some of the volunteers that have helped save those animals have been just unbelievable, and they would be dead.
Beating up. People, you say, they beat up animals. So what I want to do through the show today, for your cause and for the bigger cause, I don't want to beat people up and say, let's talk about what people can do.
We don't want to beat people up. We just want to bring awareness that these things are wrong. Animals all across the country are being thrown away. They're being gassed. They're being tortured. They're being brought into shelters. And we don't hold the public accountable for any of these things. So they just keep doing it. And the flow in the shelter never stops. It just keeps going and going and going and going.
So first of all, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing exactly.
Well, what we do is our group is Famous Fido Rescue and Adoption Alliance. We rescue animals from city shelters. We take dogs and cats out of crisis situations in abusive homes, and we try to rehome them into foster or adopters, hopefully adoptions. We interview people very thoroughly before it's an adoption. It's not buying and selling an animal. It's an adoption. Like I said before, some people are not qualified, and also some animals do not fit into people's homes. There's couch potatoes, there's exercise, there's all kinds of different involvement there. The other thing we do is we just started our rehoming program. We feel that rehoming animals, instead of bringing them to shelters or throwing them out on the street or abandoning them, is the way to go. Our big picture is a no-kill Chicago. Stop killing animals. Get on board. Become aware of what's happening. There's a lot of things people can do, even with a small amount of time, that they can do to help the animals. They can network some of the animals that need homes. They can volunteer with the animals at the shelter, at the kennel, our rescue. They can help us with events. They can help us spread the word of what's happening with animals and participate in making it a better city.
I think what you're doing is very powerful. You're a wonderful person. Say hi to Topogigio. I really feel that I know that when you go to sleep at night, when you know that your work has given a living being a home, or your work is in the process of helping a being who needs help, it probably feels good.
It feels really good. And one of the things I want to say about the rescue and what I've learned in the past years is people disregard these animals as just animals. They really do have souls. They have powerful messages. I've seen animals help people that were physically impaired, bring a lot of joy and unconditional love. Unconditional love. They want nothing back. They do not want anything from you except the unconditional love, and it's pure. And it sounds like nothing, but it's what it really is about. We get caught up as human beings with our checking accounts and our bills and what we have to do. All they want to do is help, be a part, be in their space, love you unconditionally. So this is very important work. I can't even say how big it is. It's a big mission and it's a big goal, and it's all involved. All of it is entangled into one thing: how we treat our people as human beings, how we treat our children, how we treat our seniors. It all stems from how we treat our animals.
No, it's absolutely there. I congratulate you.
Thank you for having us on the show too.
I congratulate you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. And our call to action from I Am Big today to every viewer watching: if you are going to go and get yourself an animal, make sure you realize that you're bringing home a being who loves you. Do not stop loving them, because they matter. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.